What's going on, YouTube world? Austin Zay back here with another YouTube video. And in this video, we have a very special guest and something really cool that we're actually going to talk about here today. So if you haven't already, go ahead and smash that subscribe button and smash that like button. And we're just going to go ahead and jump right into the video. And first, I guess let me explain to you a little bit about what we're going to be covering in this video. And that is going to be a little bit about the data side of things. You know, a lot of you newer to the wholesaling industry, or you've already been wholesaling for a little while, you may have already heard the saying, you know, it's been kind of going around for a few months, maybe even longer than that now, but that is that data is the new oil, right? You look at guys like Mark Zuckerberg and Jeff Bezos and all of these big, massive companies all around the world. And, you know, you notice one thing, that they have tons and tons and tons of data. So here you are as a wholesaler getting into wholesaling, or maybe you're already a seasoned wholesaler. And the thing that you keep going back to is, you know, where do I get good data? How do I, you know, monitor my data? How do I know that I'm not hitting my data 2, 3, 4, 5 times? How do I cut down some of my marketing costs by really understanding, you know, my data, understanding your data, right? And so obviously there's 1,000 different, you know, platforms out there. There's a ton of different people that do data, right? That provide good data. But in my experience, I've found one particular company that has been kind of my go-to company, and that is PropStream, okay? And I will have a link for all of this down in the description below. And I've actually made a few other videos on PropStream in the past. And so, but what we're gonna do in this video, so if you're looking for more of a basic overview of PropStream, definitely click the link in the description down below, watch that video, then come back to this video and watch this video, because this video is gonna be super, super valuable. We're actually gonna talk about a couple of updates that the PropStream people have literally gone in and done over the last several months, several years, and these updates are just phenomenal. So we've got Burton here. He is the actual man, the myth, the legend, and we're going to jump right into it, talk about some different new features and things that you can do now inside of PropStream that maybe you already knew about PropStream, but maybe you were, you know, leveraging other services to do things that now you can bring it all into one software. So Burton, I'm going to kind of pass it over to you and have you show kind of what we're talking about here.
Awesome. Thank you, Austin, so much. And thanks everybody for watching. So yeah, today we're going to talk about some of the new features that we just launched a few business days ago. And what the new feature is called is List Automator. So just kind of briefly discuss it. And I'm going to show you on the screen a little bit about how to use it effectively. So what is List Automator? In order to discuss List Automator, we have to discuss you a little bit, you, the investor. So the investor, the behavior that an investor would take, and we're very aware of the behavior that you guys do, but as a data provider for 15 years, what we've discovered is that the investor would buy a list, let's say 1,000 results, high equity, vacant properties. Then they would buy that list and they would start marketing to that list, and they would market to that list, and they would market to that list. And a few weeks would go by, maybe a few months would go by, and then they would just stop marketing to the list. And the reason for that is for very obvious reasons. And that reason is because you don't know what has happened to these lists, right? To these records that you just pulled 6 months ago, right? So you market. You probably spend a few $100s on that list. 6 months go by, you stop marketing because you just don't know whether your postcard you should be spending money on postcards or not. So that was a big issue that we wanted to solve, and List Automator is going to take care of that. The second issue was investors would search a list, and then they would build that list and save it. And then they would discover, you know what, there's one more variable I forgot to add. And so they would then have to go and build that list again, right? Just simply to add one more variable. So what List Automator is going to allow you to do is now it's going to allow you to build a list within a list. So as you save a marketing list, we're going to break down all the categories within that marketing list, and then you'll be able to create a list within a list. And the third, but by far the most highly demand one, is to finally be able to take all of our records. You'll finally be able to import a list into PropStream and get all of our records instantaneously. And so why is that important? Because you guys asked for it. You know, hey, Burton, we've been driving for dollars. We have 100 addresses. We don't want to search them one at a time in the search bar. Can we just import it and get your data? And at first we would say no, because we didn't have that luxury. As a matter of fact, no one had that luxury. No data provider out there. There's no platform out there that's going to let you import your leads and get the data, the county records, MLS records, lien records in a moment. And so we finally put an end to that. We, for the first time ever, have created a system where you can dump any list any lists, any provider's lists, any of your old lists. For example, you have a list from 3 years ago. Do you want it updated? Absolutely. You can import that in our new list automator feature, and we'll update the records for you. And then you'll be able to essentially filter it from there. So 3 major updates. One is to essentially prevent churning and burning, monitoring the list, letting you know what needs to go, what needs to stay. Second, allowing you to create a list within a list. And then third, being able to import your list or anybody else's list into PropStream, collect our data, and then export that or filter once we give you the data. So without discussing it more, because you guys were probably confused, let me go ahead and show you what I mean. So when you log into PropStream, you'll probably see the new update here, List Automator on the left-hand side. You can hit click here and read a little bit more about it, see the different plans that we have available for you. So it is an additional feature. It's, again, not designed for everybody. I think it is, but not necessarily designed for everybody. So please do note that it's not mandatory. But the List Automator actually is embedded within the new properties page. So right off the bat, the first thing that you're going to notice is that when you click on a marketing list, every single category is within that list. So when you click on your buyers for tired landlords in Chicago, you'll be able to see how many properties are in that list, how many are on market with an agent, how many just sold, vacant, high equity, low equity, negative equity, foreclosure, pre-foreclosures, and so forth. Now, creating a list within a list. So this is the first update, is showing you all the categories that your properties within that list are in. But then to be able to go in there and create a list, okay? So there's 284 low equity properties in this list. I want to find the low equity properties that have a tax lien. So now I can stack a layer within a list, and then it's going to separate and say, hey, you know what? None of those have a tax lien, so we don't have any results for you. Okay, so you'll be able to create a list within a list, which is a very important part. Second important part is the automation filter. Again, churning and burning. You buy a list, you market, and then 6 months go by, you stop marketing because you don't know what has happened. So in the past, what people would do is they would build a list, market, stop marketing, build the same list, market, stop marketing, build the same list, market. And so that process was repeated. And little did they know, 20 to 40% of the new lists would have some of the old records from the previous list. But you didn't know that because there's no way to update the records daily. Here comes the monitored list section. That's what List Automator does. So now after saving a list, in this case, Riverside liens that are off market, you can now set alerts and automation. So what would you like us to do when properties being updated into PropStream meet this filter that you have here? Would you like us to ignore it, automatically add it to the list, automatically add it to another list, or would you like to do it yourself? Would you like us to notify you so that way you can go in there and do it manually? And then this also goes for when properties no longer meet your criteria. Would you like to ignore them, remove them automatically, move them to another list, or would you like to do it yourself? So after I set rules for properties that come in meeting my filter and properties that no longer meet my filter, I can now set up notifications either daily or weekly. I'll then hit save. And PropStream will now take that marketing list or any saved list for that matter and put it into our monitored list. So the monitored list, unlike any other lists out there, the monitored list will always be updated on a daily basis, making sure that every property within the monitored list is an exact match to your parameter. If it doesn't meet your parameter, what PropStream will do is automatically remove it from your list, move it to a different list, or it'll notify you, and then you have to click on your list and manually do it yourself, right? So that's the option I chose. I'll do it myself. So as PropStream is doing the update, it took that list that I had there for several months, put it in my monitored list. Here is my filter. Since I'm now monitoring the list, PropStream lets me know, hey, 2 properties no longer meet that criteria. So these 2 properties need to be deleted from this monitored list. And so my list now goes down to 518. So these are the 518 that meet my exact criteria. Now, if we didn't know about these 2 properties that no longer meet my criteria, guess what would have happened? I'm making voicemails or sending postcards to 2 properties that no longer meet my criteria. So the monitored list, again, every single day, it's going to let you know what properties no longer meet your criteria and what properties do meet your criteria. And if everything goes well, the ones that no longer meet your criteria are now removed. And so you're sending postcards to the ones that all meet your criteria. Now, over time, if you keep your list here, this is the type of magic that's going to get performed. You're going to be able to see if I have one here that I can show you. There you go. Perfect. So here's one I've had on here. There is a total of 185 properties in this list when it first got monitored. As time flew by, 34 properties no longer meet that criteria. So 34 properties need to be removed. By the way, as the system was doing updates, one of them does meet my criteria. What is my criteria? It's right here. It's a very elaborate criteria. And so 34 properties somehow, some way did not meet this criteria anymore. They might have paid off their lien. They might have put the property on market. They might have just sold it recently. And you need to know that. Again, in the past, this wasn't done for you. You would have sent all 185 postcards, all 185 addresses postcards every day for the next 6 months or every week for the next 6 months and then just stopped. But now it's a different story because 6 months have gone by, 34 properties need to be removed. That drops my list down to 151 and one property needs to be added. So that brings my list to a total of 152. And so those 152 are the ones that I still need to market to because they're still within my parameters. And the system will continuously do that until you no longer monitor the list or until every property has been removed from your list because no one property in your list meets your criteria anymore. So these were the updates that we launched. Again, it is an optional criteria. You do get a trial period. I would recommend definitely trying out that trial period. That way you can upload any old lists that you have sitting in your desktop that needs to be updated. And you can also essentially create filters. So what I just did was show you guys the stacking feature. So showing you all the categories and being able to create a list within a list. I showed you guys how to get a marketing list or any saved list and set up the monitored, the alerts and automation. So that way every day we can tell you what needs to be added and what needs to be removed. And then the last major update is to be able to import your lists, any provider's list or any outside list into PropStream and collect our data. So in order to do that, just go to the properties page, click on the import list button here, and you're going to take your Excel sheet, which here's one right here that you guys see. And just to show you, right, 181 Costa Mesa Street. And if I search that in our system, I just want to show you guys that I don't have it. So this is not like a premeditated thing. So 181 Costa Mesa. So there's no results, right? I'm searching all of my properties. There's no 181 Costa Mesa, as you guys see here. But with the new feature, I'm now able to import any outside lists into PropStream. So I'm going to go ahead and import my lists, my driving for dollars list. I'm going to go ahead and save it. And in just a few seconds, we're going to take all the addresses that you just uploaded and connect it to our database. So 257, you uploaded 260. 257 were successful, 3 failed. I'll be able to see the failed and the ones that successfully matched. Some of them didn't match. Some of them had maybe a unit number I needed to add or something of that nature. So now that 257 were added, my driving for dollars list is here now. And here are all the records. And again, I can now search that 181 Costa, which you saw me do earlier. It wasn't there earlier. Now it's in there, right? Because it was imported. So here's that address, city, state, zip code, nothing else. I just imported it into my driving for dollars list. I search that address. I click on it. Here's PropStream's detail now add to it. So guys, this is big. Again, if you want us to update an old list that you've been sitting on because you just stopped marketing to it, or you have a different provider's list and you want our data because they don't have MLS or they don't have lien records, bring it on over, import it. And not only can you import it and get our details on it, you can actually edit the filters on that. All you have to do is monitor the list. So after I import my list, I'm going to set it to a monitored list. And then after it's in the monitored section, so this only applies to monitored properties, but after my imported list is in the monitored section, I now can add a filter to it. So I can say, okay, well, I just imported, or I just uploaded 257 properties and PropStream gave me the data. Now I want PropStream to isolate all the off-market, non-owner occupied properties with 70% in equity that are owned by an individual. And so now PropStream's going to say, okay, well, then 189 need to be removed from that list. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. So I don't know if you guys just saw what I did. This is revolutionary. To take an outside list, right, that you got from a different provider, or you went driving for dollars, or maybe a list that you had from like 4 years ago, import it into PropStream and get all of our details, which I just showed you. And then not only get our details, but then tell PropStream, okay, now that you've given me your details, I want you to isolate this and that and that. And now we're down to the 68 properties that need to be marketed to, right? So we went from a list that did not belong into PropStream. It was put into PropStream. PropStream gave me all the property records. I set it as a monitored list, and then I added my filters. And then PropStream says, okay, well, that leaves us with 68 properties. What do you want to do now? Export it? Go ahead. Now you can export it. And so we went from this list over here, added some filters, and now we have all of the properties that meet my criteria with all of PropStream's records. Guys, this is what List Automator is. This is a new feature. We've been working on this for several years. It was to, again, accommodate those that wanted our data, import a huge list, stack lists within lists, and then monitor your list so we can tell you what needs to be added and removed, so you're not sending postcards to properties that don't meet your criteria. And then to be able to set rules to an imported list that's not even our list. So this is what the List Automator feature is. And I thank you guys for watching this. And Austin, thanks again for letting me share this information with your audience, man.
I totally appreciate you coming on here, Burton. And thank you everybody else for watching. I mean, guys, again, you know, if you're watching this video right now, understand that, I've personally only been in wholesaling for 6 or 7 years now, but you know, I've got buddies, friends, and mentors that have been in the game for decades. Look, PropStream's been around for decades, right? So there's a ton of softwares and systems and people and data and this and that and the other thing out there. And we've tried a lot of different ones, you know, but it's so cool to be able to find one that does so many different things rather than all these different things that each do one thing. So, you know, again, if you're watching this video, even if it didn't fully make sense, you know, at least drop in the comment section down below. Let me know what questions you have. I'm happy to get Burton back on here in a couple of weeks and bug him a little bit more. So let me know. And again, if this went over your head, maybe go watch one of my other videos on PropStream that is a bit more simple, which I'll also leave in the description down below. And again, thank you all for watching. And I really appreciate your time, Burton.
Absolutely. Thank you, Austin. Thank you, everybody, for watching.